Hello guys, welcome to a new video of the first World Chess Championship of 1886. It's Wilhelm Steinitz against Johannes Zukertort, and today we're looking at round number 13. So this will be the longest game of their matchup with a lot of pieces maneuvering, a very instructive endgame. So let's just dive straight into it. Zukertort has the white pieces and he starts with d4. d5 by Steinitz, c4 the Queen's Gambit. And now e6, Queen's Gambit declined, knight to c3, knight to f6. And usually we see bishop pinning the knight here, but Zukertort plays bishop c4. Now c5, the semi-Tarrasch. e3. And after pawn takes, and pawn takes c4, we have bishop takes c4. And white is left with an isolated queen pawn. We have seen this in a lot of their matches already. Well, white has a lot of space looking towards your king and we can attack easier. But we have a weakness, an isolated pawn, which can be exploited later on. So what happens now? Knight to c6, attacking the pawn straight away. Knight to f3, defending it. Now bishop e7. And castles by both sides. And perhaps it was game number 8 or 9. We saw queen to e2 here. But Zukertort tries something else. Rook to e1. Now the bishop goes to d7. Queen to e2 again. And queen to a5. And here perhaps the best move for white is a3, b4, kick away this queen. But here we see Zukertort coming in with his knight to b5. Well, a6 just kicking it away. But now bishop c7. And here there's only one move for black. You have to play b6. Since if you move away your queen can actually get trapped. So b6, the only move. But what have you really achieved here? You have to move your knight again, back to c3. Now rook to c8 and bishop has to go back to f4. And if you look at the position, it's exactly the same like a couple of moves ago, except for the fact that black has developed on the queen side. So now b5, bishop b3, queen goes back to b6, which is a little inaccuracy because white has a really good move here. And that's d5. Well, why is this a good move? Well, after knight takes, for example, knight takes, pawn takes, and bishop takes, we have a pin on the knight towards the rook. And if you try to play rook to e8 with a discovered attack on our queen, we have knight to e5, double attack on this knight, and also threatening winning the f7 pawn. So you have to take the knight, but then we take your rook and we're up in exchange. So that's why d5 is such a strong move. But Zukertort didn't find d5, he plays rook to d1. Now knight a5, the best move, kicking away this strong bishop, looking at those light squares. Bishop goes to c2 and knight to c4. And here not b3, because then we have knight to a3, pressure on the bishop, pressure on the unguarded knight. So here better is bishop d3, which is played by Zukertort. And now knight to d6. So the knight was rotating from c6 to a5 to c4 and now to d6. So what now? Well, Zukertort comes in with his knight. He wants the bishop pair. Simply bishop e8 and bishop to g5. Zukertort is putting some pressure on the king's side. Now the queen comes back to defend our bishop and queen to f3. Rook to a7, a really nice move, wanting to bring the rook to c7 and have double rooks on this open file. Well, Zukertort plays queen h3, trying to put some pressure here, but simply h6. Bishop has to go back and rook to c7. And you don't really have an attack on the king side. So what now? Well, Zukertort does find the best move, d5. Since if you take with the knight, we have knight takes, pawn takes, and bishop b6 winning the rook. So after d5, Steinitz finds the best response, b4. And here actually the best move is giving away the knight. D takes e6 would be the best move. And after pawn takes, you can take this pawn, but then we take it with the queen with check. And if you take this pawn, we take the pawn with check. And after bishop takes, we play bishop to d4. And the rook has no good squares. If you go all the way back to c7, again this tactic with b6. But that didn't happen. After d5 and b4, Zukertort didn't take the pawn, he played the knight back to e2, but now we win this free pawn. And there's no threat on b6 since the knight is guarding it. Okay, we take this pawn, which is free, but now rook to a8. And we have a lot of open lines for our rooks. Bishop has to go back. So what now? Well, now bishop f6 attacking the knight. Bishop goes to d4, defending it. And here the knight jumps to b5, attacking the bishop who's guarding the knight. Knight goes back to f3, but that's not a good move, because now, after knight takes and knight takes, in this position, black has a really powerful move. I would say pause the video here and find the best move for black. Well, Steinitz played rook to a5, which is not the best move. It does keep the advantage, but better is bishop to a4, attacking the rook here. Well, you can move the rook, but better is b3. But then after bishop goes back, you can see that the knight is pinned to the rook, and this is a problem. Something like queen f3, but now the knight jumps in. We have to take the knight. But first, knight takes. Now, knight to b5, attacking the rook. Bishop takes, and here actually bishop takes a1, giving away the queen. Since after rook takes, we have immense pressure here. You would have to play h4. Now rook c1 check, king comes up, bishop e5 check, g3, and then something like rook to c2, having pressure here. We will have pressure here. This would be the best continuation, which is really hard to find actually, a really long continuation. So that's why Steinitz played rook to a5. Now queen comes to f3 anyway. And here, bishop a4. But now it's not so strong. Rook to e1. Knight goes to e7, making way for a rook to come to the king side. A really nice maneuver here. Now queen to e4, threatening checkmate, but simply g6. What now? Well, b3. Bishop goes back, but now again this problem with the pinned knight. And here after bishop back to e8, we see bishop c4 here. And knight to f5, and this is immense pressure on the knight. So what does Zukertort do? Well, he plays the best move, sacrificing his knight. Since after pawn takes, bishop takes, with check, king to g7, the rook is safe now. And okay, we are a piece down, but we took 2 pawns, so okay, the game still keeps going. Queen to e7. Now knight to f4, defending the bishop, but rook to e5, right? Queen has to go back. And this is a critical position in the game. Here Steinitz played rook takes e1 check, which does give away the advantage. Well, why does it give away the advantage? Since after rook takes e1 and bishop to c3, white has this really powerful move, knight to d5. Look at this beautiful fork. And it's probably what Steinitz missed. So the queen has to move, we take the rook, queen takes, and we're up in exchange. Simply rook to d1, right? Now knight to d4, cutting off the lines of the rook, attacking the bishop. Bishop drops back to c4, bishop c6, and our queen develops to d3. And here a really important move Steinitz has to find. Either queen to e5 or queen to f4. To prevent the queen from developing and coming on the open e-file. But here bishop a8. Which is an interesting move. Maybe he wants to double here. But now queen e3. The queen can come in and this can be dangerous. So queen d6. Defending the pawn and also defending some squares here. And here you shouldn't come in. Then we have knight f3 check. You're losing the rook. So what now? Well, Zukertort finds the best move, a3. You cannot take the pawn, then you lose your bishop. So after a3, we see bishop c6 back. It did nothing on a8 and it came back. But now a takes b4. Still you cannot take it because then we take the knight. Queen goes to f6. And here king to f1, which is not the best move. Better here is b5. Since after knight takes, bishop takes, we have queen to c5, attacking this bishop. It doesn't have a lot of good squares, only e8. Now rook to d6. And for example, queen e5, threatening checkmate, so we have to take the queen. But after bishop takes, at the end we win a piece. So that's why here b5 is the best move. But we see king f1, which does drop the advantage. Now we have knight b5. Now you cannot push the pawn anymore. Queen e6, queen takes, bishop takes, forcing a queen exchange. And it's 3 pieces against 2, but we have more pawns. So let's see what happens. Bishop takes b4. Bishop d7, wants to get rid of those bishops. Knight c3, attacking the rook. Rook to d4, attacking the bishop. And now bishop takes. Rook takes with check. King to f6. And still, it's not so clear what's going to happen. Let's see if Zukertort can win this game. King to f6. Now rook goes to d4, attacking the bishop. Bishop e7. b4, pushing the pawn. King to e5, attacking the rook. Rook to c4, attacking the knight. Knight goes to b5, preventing the pawn from pushing further. But now rook c6, wanting to get this pawn. Bishop d6, blocking it. Rook b6, attacking the knight. So Zukertort is playing a beautiful game with his rook. Now knight to d4. Rook to b7, wanting to get behind here. g5, but now b5. King to d5, so the king comes to the rescue. He wants to take this pawn. b6, king to c6, rook to h7, and after king takes, rook takes, we have this endgame. So what now? Well, we want the king back to the king side, so king to c7, slowly coming here. h4, pawn takes, and rook takes. And this is a crucial position, since after knight f5 and after knight f5, the rooks attack. So first rook h7 check, king to d8, and now g4. This is a crucial position. Well, what's so important here? We have a dark squared bishop and the knight together who want to defend this position. So ideally, you want your knight to defend the dark squares together with the bishop. So what now? Well, the best and only move here is knight to d4. Well, why is that? Since after g5, the knight goes to e6, defending crucial dark squares here. And for example, after g6, simply bishop e5, and there's no way for you to make progress. So both pieces have to defend dark squares here. But what actually happens in the game is knight e7, but now king g2. King goes to e8, king f3, and after some pieces maneuvering, you can see the problem here. The knight is defending light squares here, and the bishop is defending dark squares, but that's not ideal. You have to have the bishop and the knight defending the dark squares here. Since now f5, and you can see slowly the pawns are marching forward, and after king to f8, there are multiple ways to win this position. Zukertort finds the most forcing one. Pause the video here and find the winning move for white. So here, the most forcing move is rook takes e7. And Steinitz resigns, since after king takes, g7, bishop takes, and king takes, we will make a queen. Even g7 check was possible here, since after bishop takes g7, again rook takes, and king takes, and again we're making a queen. I hope you liked this video. If so, please like, subscribe or comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.